Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Doom. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to say if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things, it really helps. And if you want to see more content into the future, please consider clicking the Patreon link down below and going to my Patreon, signing up for coaching, or just supporting me in general for that $5 or $10 a month. It really helps because for whatever reason, YouTube has not monetized my channel, so I make absolutely no money for making all this content. So in order to keep up making content in the future, if you guys really like it and you want to see more of it, please consider supporting if you can. Now that we got that out of the way, let's jump back to the video. So Doom is an off-lane hero, but is sometimes played mid or in some other roles, but regardless of the role that he's played in, he pretty much does the same thing every single game, and that is that he's focused around his ultimate ability. He's pretty much one of those quintessential heroes where, you know, his normal abilities, they just kind of do some stuff, help him in the game, help him farm, etc., but he's really focused around the ultimate. And his ultimate is literally called Doom. His name is Doom, and his ultimate is also Doom. That's because this ability is the best single target ability in the entire game. It pretty much just deletes somebody from the game, from the team fight. They can't cast abilities, they can't use items, and they take a lot of damage over time for a long duration. So pretty much what you do with this hero is you just jump in, you Doom somebody to either pick them off or to eliminate them from the team fight. It's usually the carry or the mid hero, whatever it is, whatever hero is like quintessential for the enemy to win the fight. You pretty much just use your ultimate on them and then you win the game, you win the fight. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but obviously that can be pretty complicated in the strategy and, you know, picking them off and actually being able to cast your ultimate, all of those kinds of things. And then the other thing that Doom does is that his main abilities are basically just a steroid for the hero in general to be able to allow you to chase people down after you doomed them, to do a little bit more damage over time. So you're pretty fast and you do more damage over time with your abilities. And he has a built-in Midas ability. It's basically just a farming ability that ensures this hero gets farm almost no matter what. So you almost don't even really need to like farm creeps exactly, you know, like normal heroes where you have some kind of AoE thing or you build Battle Fury or something else like that. You pretty much have a built-in Midas. And actually sometimes not only do you have that built-in Midas, but people also will build Midas on the hero, so then you have two Midases, and this hero can just passively, through both of those things, have the top net worth in the game. And then obviously, eventually, once you get a bunch of items and you do a ton of damage, you can have a refresher orb, you have two Dooms, you doom two people, or you doom the same person twice if they buy back, whatever it is, and then that's pretty much how you win the game. So that's how to focus and think about Doom. He doesn't really like dominate lanes, he doesn't do anything super special throughout the game. He can, you know, be really annoying to pick people off because he does a lot of damage over time. He can be very fast and hard to catch, but it's mainly this hero that you just kind of want to wait for your level 6 timing. You want to wait for Doom to be off cooldown, and then you use it to kill people. You use it to win a team fight, use it to get a pick off, and then you use your abilities to get, you know, your farm, be top net worth, get double Doom, whatever it is, a lot of items, and then just cause a lot of chaos in fights. So that's pretty much how to think about Doom. Now let's jump into his abilities and see how they work. So now that we understand Doom in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to be that really good single target, you know, pick off, that eliminating one hero from the fight kind of hero like I talked about earlier. And we can also see how his, you know, other abilities just kind of help him do that a little bit better, help him farm and those kinds of things. So instead of taking a look at Doom, which is his main ability first, I'll do that last like I usually do with most ultimates. And first we're going to take a look at Devour. So Devour is that Midas-like ability. It's his farming ability that lets him just farm without even having to really hit creeps like I talked about. And pretty much what you do is you just use this ability, you walk up to an enemy creep or a neutral creep, and then you just click on it and you consume it. So not only do you get the gold from, you know, killing that creep, but also then you start digesting, you know, the creep. And then once this pops, you get a little bit of extra gold, and you can see the bonus gold there as the levels go up. You can also see there's a creep max level, and that's because, like I said, you can also consume neutral creeps, and that's also why there's two blank spaces here for abilities, is because when you consume a neutral creep, you get that neutral creep's abilities. So neutral creeps have all kinds of abilities. They have stuns, roots, they have, you know, movement speed, attack slow, movement slow, they have attack damage buff, all this kind of stuff. There's tons of different abilities that the creeps have in the game, but the creeps, the neutral creeps, actually have levels themselves. So some creeps are 4, 5, 6, etc. So you can't just go in and consume the highest level creep right off the bat from level 1, because it is very important for this hero's laning stage which creep you consume or which creep you get that spawns from certain camps and all those kinds of things, because that's a big part of this hero. and utilizing this hero's ability to have more abilities, because really all of his abilities aren't super special. They just do a lot of damage over time or help him farm, those kinds of things. So that's pretty much Devour. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It's like a Midas ability. Now, I will say this. You see how I have it toggled here? It's basically because the one, you can toggle it in two different ways to basically set whether or not you want to consume the abilities of the creep you're using or you're consuming with Devour. So in the one sense, in the one way, you can consume a creep, a neutral creep, and you will get its abilities. If you toggle it in the other way, then you basically won't get those abilities even if you consume the creeps. You can keep the ones you currently have. So just keep that in mind. That is something you can do. So that's Devour, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Next, we're going to look at Scorched Earth, another simple ability. Basically, you click it, and it has an AoE there. And you can see on the ground, there's like this fire that comes out. It just does damage over time to all the enemies in the AoE. It lasts for a decent amount of time. It does a decent amount of damage, and it gives Doom bonus movement speed. So this just helps you, run people down, do extra damage, clear creep waves, clear creep camps, all of those kinds of things. A little bit of a all-around ability, not too special, nothing too unique. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. The next thing we're going to look at is Infernal Blade. So this is another damage over time ability. You can see I can just use it on the dummy target here. And it does a short, small 0.6 second stun. It's not really that big of a deal. It's more like it counterbalances the animation that it takes to actually do that. But it can cancel TPs, all of those kinds of things. And then you can see how the enemy ticks down for percentage HP there as well. So it's a short duration, but it just does a little bit of extra damage. So you can see how all these abilities, they just allow Doom to be a little bit faster, do more AoE damage or more damage over time, ticking slowly, and then that all synergizes with his ultimate Doom. So although this is all magical damage, Doom is actually pure damage, so keep that in mind. It's very, very good damage overall, because pure damage is like the best kind of damage. It doesn't get reduced by any kind of armor or magic resistance or anything like that, so that's really good. And the other thing that it does, like I described before, it disables the enemy from casting abilities or using items. So I'll just use it here on the axe, and the axe basically is doomed for a good amount of time. You see the duration there. He's ticking down from the damage as well, and he pretty much can't use any abilities. So I'm pretty much clicking the abilities. I'm trying to use my call. I'm trying to use my blink. I can't do anything. So you can see how this is pretty much simple here when you doom somebody to pick them off. We'll just refresh here. I can doom him. I can use my Scorched Earth. Now it's very hard for him to run away from me. I can even stun him a little bit to get some extra damage in with Infernal Blade, but also give him a little bit more time for my enemies, or my allies, to maybe catch up, that kind of thing. And then he just ticks down over time, and I basically eliminated the axe from the fight completely, or if he was in a side lane, or if I was picking him off, I just picked him off and basically killed him by myself, or with a little bit of help from my allies. So that's pretty much Doom. Those are all of his abilities, and that's how they synergize together. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It's just that everything is centered around making sure you get this ability off, because it does have a very, very long cooldown, so you need to make sure that you're getting it off and you're not wasting it, which is very, very important. The other thing is this ability and all of his other abilities do damage over time. So if you only just cast Doom on somebody and they have a lot of HP regen, or they're very tanky, sometimes it won't even kill them. It won't really do much. They can just kind of sit in the back of the fight. Maybe they can lifesteal with right clicks, those kinds of things. So it's one of those things where you're going to buy BKB on this hero. You want to really be able to stand your ground to do a lot more damage over time, all of those kinds of things. The other thing to keep in mind is that obviously, because it is a single target ability, Lincoln Sphere is a hard counter to Doom, basically. So you see, I'll just refresh here. I try to cast it on the axe, but he has Lincolns, and now my ability is just wasted, and it's on cooldown for 145 seconds. So it's very important to make sure that you're not using it on a Lincoln Sphere and those kinds of things, or you're buying something like Heaven's Halberd to break Lincolns first. So just keep that in mind. Now, obviously, there's a ton of other abilities that you can get here, stuns and things like that, like I talked about. I'm not going to go over all of those. You can kind of look at those yourself by, either going in game or looking, up Wikipedia or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of other things that can synergize too. So you can have other stuns, you can do other things that maybe would cancel Lincolns and stuff too as well. So keep that in mind for Doom. But that's pretty much Doom, and those are his abilities, and that's how you can think about the hero. I will briefly mention that the Ags is pretty good. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just makes Doom better. And increases the duration by 6 seconds, which is always good, but it also applies a break. So if there's a hero like Spectre, who's really tanky, like I was talking about, the damage over time, it's not really going to do much to something like a Spectre without the Ags, but when you have the Ags, you cast this on Spectre, and now the Spectre is broken. That passive ability to, shrug off damage is no longer there, and you're going to be able to do way, way more damage to that hero. It's the same thing with like Tidehunter, or any kind of hero that has innate damage block or innate tankiness from some kind of passive. This this Ags is really, really good. And then I'll just say the Infernal Blade Agnum's Shard. It just basically does extra damage and stuns a little bit better and those kinds of things. It's not super important, not something somebody, not something people pick up all the time. But Ags can be very, very good. And then obviously, Refresher's also really, really good because then it just gives you 2 Dooms in the fight. So that's Doom. Those are all of his abilities, and these are kind of how you synergize with like Agnum Scepter and all these kinds of things and what that does for him. But it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, as you can see. So that's Doom. Those are his abilities. Now let's jump into a game and see how he's played. So now we're jumping into a replay here of Nothing to Say playing off-lane Doom, and we'll see how he goes for Devour first, and then he just instantly devours the range creep, actually before the creeps even meet in the lane, and that's largely to just get this ability on cooldown as fast as possible to get as much gold as possible. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that every single time, but it is an interesting play if you can manage to do it, if you can manage to, ward on the enemy side of the map, you're pretty safe, and you can go aggressively like he just did. It's not a bad strategy, to be honest, to do that like he just did. So just keep that in mind. You usually want to be leveling that first just to get the maximum amount of gold in there. Now, some games you will go Scorched Earth first if you think you are capable of, securing your range creep, those kinds of things. But usually you skill this first, you secure your range creep with this Devour, and then you kind of just lane, basically not as a carry necessarily, but especially against the matchup like this, against AM with IO, it's just such a hard lane. It's just not a lane that they're going to really kill too much. They also have an Earth Shaker that's not great. I mean, he has level 1, he's okay, but it's just not the best lane for him. So pretty much what he's just doing in this lane is just looking to survive, looking to get his farm, looking to pretty much use his Devour off cooldown as much as possible to get items and these kinds of things, and also not get his mana burnt from AM so he can actually lane correctly, these kinds of things. But you see how he goes for Scorched Earth second, and yeah, Doom, this is just kind of how Doom is played. Now, obviously, he's getting bullied out because this is a very strong lane. It's kind of very annoying for him to play against this, but yeah, this is just kind of how Doom is. Doom is not the strongest laner. You can see how he's getting bullied out by an AM IO, and AM is not usually thought of as a strong laner. I mean, he's a decent laner, but not the strongest. But you can see with this matchup, it's just not great. Now, there are some lanes, I will say, like double melee lanes that you can be against that aren't super strong, where you will be aggressive and you can get kills. There are some replays, you could look at pro replays, where they're able to do that. But you can see how this is just not Doom's strength. Laning is just not his strength, but he ends up going in here using his Devour again to get a creep with an ability, and this ability is not super bad. It's mana burn, which is pretty interesting. And then he pulls the lane because he just knows that he's not going to be able to lane, and he might as well just use Scorched Earth and other things to try to pull the lane back to get more experience. But you can see how even with this bad lane, even with only 5 CS, we can go to the net worth. Right now, he's not doing great, but he will eventually catch up just because of the nature of this hero. Because the nature of this hero with this built-in Devour ability is going to help him farm naturally as he levels up. So he's actually having like a horrible lane here. So this isn't like the perfect way to explain like how to be aggressive with the hero. But I just kind of wanted to show you this because he goes Devour first. It's a hard lane, and I just want to show you that like basically what you want to do is survive. You want to get as much as you can out of the lane. If you can be aggressive, if you can kill, that's perfectly fine, but just not one of Doom's strengths. Until you get 6, you're usually not going to be ultra aggressive because usually they have like a really tanky, 5 position or a ranged 5 position, and you're just not going to be able to get on top of them and do a lot of damage. So your main thing is just, get Devour, get some levels, get your Doom, and then once you have Doom, that's when you can look to be aggressive. That's when you can look to really, turn the tables on the lane and these kinds of things. It's just the nature of the hero that he just kind of tries to survive, tries to get his last hits, tries to get as much as he can out of the lane. Because if he was a really strong laner, if he was able to dominate lanes just like in every matchup, then he would be super overpowered, because he not only does he have this steroid, this like Midas-like ability, but then he would also dominate lanes. It would just be too good. So that's kind of how to think about Doom. That's how to lane with Doom. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Lane, survive, play almost like a carry. Not super passively in every situation, but just play like this. Use your Devour, level it up, get as much as you can, consume the range creep when you can, consume the first catapult like we just showed you there, and this is pretty much just Doom's laning stage. Now let's jump ahead to when he can be more aggressive in the game. So we jumped ahead to about 11 minutes, and basically for the last like 5-6 minutes, he's just kind of been surviving. There was a kill that he assisted on when, you know, AM and a bunch of heroes dove the tower and stuff like that. But it wasn't that big of a deal. For the most part, he was trying to lane, trying to get as much as he could out of the lane, using his Devour, these kinds of things. And he used the Doom in a kind of a weird way before, so I didn't want to show you that. But now, as soon as Doom is up and he's able to be aggressive, they smoke up and they look to get aggressive onto the enemy hero, and they try to first stun the anti-mage so that he can't use his counterspell to counterspell the Doom. And then he uses, you know, they're basically 3-4-man ganking, being aggressive. Now, obviously, they unfortunately aren't able to chase down the anti-mage because of the nature of the hero. He's pretty tanky, especially with that magic resistance built in. And they end up trying to save him with IO. They end up trying to save him with the Spirit Breaker, so the Spirit Breaker tanks the gank. But still, this is kind of just the general way that you want to think about using this hero. Obviously, he's against an anti-mage, which is kind of a hard counter because of the counter spell. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that, obviously, he's playing against very good heroes that are going to try to counter gank and these kinds of things. But a lot of times in your lanes, if you're playing Doom, you're going to be able to be aggressive, kill off the carry. If it's not a counter to Doom, if he doesn't have anything to deflect the Doom, you're just going to be able to hit 6, Doom the carry, and usually chase him down and kill him under the towers. Usually what happens. Otherwise, this is pretty much just how to play Doom. You farm up, you kill creeps, use Devour. When Doom is up, you just use Doom to kill somebody. And otherwise, you know, you usually go Midas, something like this. You just get farm, and eventually you just get so powerful that it's very hard to deal with you later in the game because there's almost nothing the enemy can do to stop you from getting farm. If we go to the net worth here, even though he seems to have had a terrible lane, like not a very good lane, he has 2 deaths, 0 kills, only 3 assists. It really didn't go well. The first Doom wasn't used to too much success. That second Doom didn't go well in the sense that they only got a kill in the Spirit Breaker. And yet, look at this. He's only 600 gold behind the AM, despite AM's like insane advantage. AM almost has Battle Fury. He has a really good game so far. And the Doom is just getting more net worth. And now that he has Midas, and now that he's, you know, going to have more points in Devour as he levels it up here after he maxed out Scorched Earth, it's just good. He's going to rise in ranks in net worth, and he's going to get better and better, more powerful, get his Blink, potentially get Shiva's, BKB, Refresher, all of these kinds of things, and just become a threat in the game. There's almost nothing anybody can do to stop him. And that's really the strength of Doom, is even though he might not have the best laning stage, even though he might not be the greatest in the beginning of the game, it's very, very hard for anybody to stop you from hitting your timings because of the built-in nature of this hero just getting farm, regardless of anything, regardless of even having to push waves and these kinds of things, and then getting a lot of pickoffs with his ultimate. So we can see how, basically, the reason why I've just not been rambling, but just been talking here is because I wanted to show you basically how, since he used Doom, he's just been passive. He's been hitting creeps. He's been, you know, consuming things with Devour or Midasing things every time it's off cooldown. And now that, as soon as Doom is up, he's going to look to get aggressive, whether that's trying to kill somebody that's trying to farm down here, or that's going to, you know, rotate top. Obviously, he's not top now when the Doom comes off cooldown, so he's not going to get the kills there where the enemy is all in the jungle. He doesn't really want to go in his 5, so that's one of the things. He's being a little bit passive now because he sees the entire enemy top, and you don't really want to be using Doom early on into 5 heroes, because usually there's going to be something that can save. You want to be able to Doom like a single hero alone and chase them down, or, you know, get somebody to pick off, get some heroes to help you pick somebody off, these kinds of things. It's not really a team fight ability until later in the game when you have a lot more items, when you can blink initiate, when you have a BKB where you can chase people down, when you have multiple levels in Doom, all of this kinds of stuff. Early on, you want it to be a pick-off ability. So that's pretty much how to transition with Doom, how to think about Doom with farming and using his abilities in the mid-game. Now, I skipped ahead a little bit here, about 5 or so minutes. I just wanted to show you this good timing that as soon as you get your Blink Dagger, and as soon as you have Doom up, those in concert, you're going to look to be aggressive, either with your team or even solo sometimes. Now, obviously, like I said before, AM is not the best hero to have Doom against because he can counterspell your Doom and all this kind of stuff. It's very difficult to get your Doom off when you when there's an enemy anti-mage as the carry, but otherwise a lot of other carries are going to be able to Doom. But you can see how with the team together, they're just able to get super aggressive, and basically because they know, the enemy knows, that even though they're kind of leading and they're in a good position right now, with this Blink Doom that they know is there, they just have to be playing safe. They have to be scared. And the enemy just has to play basically passive, and they can be very, very aggressive because of this timing. But you're noticing that he's not really jumping in and using Doom just willy-nilly. He's not wasting it. That's another key to this hero, is you can't just jump in and use Doom. It's not like Lion Finger or something like this where you can just kind of use it to secure a kill. You don't want to do that. You want to Doom somebody that's like full HP at the beginning of the fight, at the beginning of the pickoff, to secure the pickoff, like we're going to see here. So he jumps in. He actually stuns with his AoE ability with War Stomp that he got from a creep. where AM counterspelled in the beginning, and he waited for counterspell to go off so that he could then use Doom and secure the kill on the AM with a little bit of help from his friends, from his team there, because obviously AM is very good. Doesn't really take too much damage with his max counterspell. Doesn't take a lot of AoE damage from the magic damage and the pure damage of Doom, but we can see with a little bit of help from his allies, he's able to secure the pickoff. So that's a great sequence there, I think, to learn how to play Doom. Obviously, once you have Doom up, once you have your Blink Dagger, you're going to look to be aggressive, and then you don't want to just waste Doom in a team fight where you're already securing a kill. You don't just want to Doom a support that's like half health, that's almost already dead. You want to make sure you're dooming a good target like a mid or an off lane or a carry or something. In the side lane, you want to Doom somebody that's kind of full HP, that has a lot of abilities, that has a lot of items still left to use, because that way you're taking them out of the fight when they have a ton of resources. That's very important to do that. And we see how he was participating in the gank. They were being super aggressive because of the timing, but he didn't just waste Doom. He waited to use it on the side lane against the anti-mage to take him and to pick him off in that way. So that's a perfect example of how to use Doom. And then again, like I said before, now he's just a little bit passive because he doesn't have Doom. He doesn't really contribute all that much yet because, yes, now he has his BKB, but he's not really going to be doing much in the fight without that Doom. So it's just important to keep in mind that without Doom, you do not want to be playing super aggressive. Now, obviously, if your team is very strong, if your team has a great timing, you can contribute with a stun, with some magic damage, with a BKB, with your War Stomp stun that you would get from the Centaur creep in the jungle, these kinds of things. So you can contribute. You're just not as strong. You don't love to fight unless your team feels really strong when you don't have Doom up and when you don't have BKB up. So just keep that in mind. That's pretty much how to play Doom in the mid game with your item timings. So this is going to be an example actually of how sort of not to use Doom, because they're pushing high ground, they got Aegis, it's been a lot of scrappy fights happening. You see, he jumps in, and he wants to Doom the Spirit Breaker here, but there's a way that they can actually save him with the IO tether and the relocate. And you can see now, even though they have Aegis, he used Doom, and the Doom was pretty much wasted, so now they immediately have to back off. And it's kind of a hard thing to calculate, because obviously you want to use Doom, like we just saw there, in an initiative way to pick off somebody that's kind of high health, hard to bring down, that kind of thing, that does a lot of, disruptive things in fights with spells or those kinds of things. Like, it's good to Doom those kinds of heroes like Spirit Breaker, although Spirit Breaker is an interesting one because Spirit Breaker does have that status resistance that you have to be careful about, because it means Doom doesn't last very long. But actually Doom, it's one thing to know, Doom will do the maximum amount of damage even if there's status resistance and it doesn't last very long. So it actually makes the damage happen quicker. So it's actually not that bad to Doom a status resisted hero like Spirit Breaker. But even so, basically the point is that yes, it wasn't the worst Doom ever in terms of like the target, because we'll see him actually Doom the Spirit Breaker later, because they know based on the lineup, or he knows, that Spirit Breaker is the main source of control. Yes, they have a Lion, but he's easily brought down, and none of that stuff goes through BKB. So as long as they pop BKBs, the Spirit Breaker is really the only hero that they need to take care of. Otherwise, they can just reign free in fights with the Morphling, with the Earthshaker, with the Void Spirit, these kinds of things. Now, obviously, the enemy really screws up here and gets picked off out of base, but basically, we can see how they had to be passive because he wasted the Doom there with that high ground push. But now, as we fast forward, we'll go forward to the next high ground push, basically, that they're going to do. I'm going to show you how that you can still be effective with Doom, like I talked about, even despite him having Doom off cooldown. So, we'll go here. They basically have a fight here where they take. So they go and they pressure high ground again because there's two people dead. He doesn't have Doom yet, but he does have BKB. He does have a stun. He does dish a lot of damage out and does offer a lot of teamfight control with this AoE stun. So we can see what happens here. As they basically try to defend Rax, he jumps in. And then as the Morphling goes in, he pops BKB, he uses Infernal Blade, he goes right for the IO, he gets a double stun off with his War Stomp, with his AoE Stomp, with that Centaur's ability there. And yes, he takes a lot of damage, but he doesn't even have Doom up, and now he has Doom up for later in the fight if they want to turn it around, if they didn't even win. So it's just one of those things that once you get later onto the game, you have your Blink, you have your BKB, you have more items, you can do a lot of damage, you can offer a lot of teamfight control even if you don't have Doom up. Just keep that in mind. But obviously Doom is the main spell that you're going to be using. Now, as we go forward here in the... I'll just fast forward a little bit more here. Basically, we can see that... Actually, I fast forward a little bit too much. We can see that They keep continuing the fight, and he instantly dooms the only hero on their team that's alive right now that is going to actually be able to dish out any control and allow the anti-mage to do anything in the fight. So he basically just dooms the Spirit Breaker because it's very, very much worth it. The Morphling goes right after the Spirit Breaker, and then the Morphling kills the Spirit Breaker, and now they can just high ground and can secure the game. So basically, I just wanted to show you all of those few things here in this little part of the replay. The last thing that I wanted to show you, basically how if you waste Doom, it can be very, very bad for your team for high ground pushing because it's a very important part of the kit. But just because you waste Doom, that doesn't mean that you can't be aggressive at times. You still offer a lot of teamfight control and damage and these kinds of things. And also, that picking your targets for Doom is extremely important. Basically, later on in the game, you need to know who to Doom. Now, obviously, he doomed the Spirit Breaker because there was only 2 people to Doom. And we saw how even earlier when they did go to push high ground, he still wanted to Doom the Spirit Breaker regardless. And that's largely because he knows that the Spirit Breaker is really the only form of BKB piercing control. The only real thing on the enemy team that allows them to get kills is the Spirit Breaker. So basically, every single game, you want to pick a target and think, okay, I really need to Doom this target, whether that's the carry or whether that's some other hero. That's pretty much how you're going to be playing Doom. That's how to think about Doom in general. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. Go to the Discord to request replay reviews, and I hope you guys can join my Patreon to help support me like I mentioned earlier in the video. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.